Hey guys, welcome back to Follow Me 11B. Discussions on current events, macroeconomics, and freedom and liberty from a veteran's perspective. Today I wanted to give you an update on the Russia-Ukraine war. But before I get to that, a couple of other odds and ends. First of all, I wanted to touch on, it's been a minute or two since my last video, and let me give you the update on why. Well, number one, the usual reasons, been kind of busy, catching up on things that I got behind on when I had the illness second time around. Now, let me just tell you, first of all, I'm estimating I had probably the BA5 version this time versus what Omicron I think it was last time around. And let me tell you, this was a heck of a lot easier than the last time. I mean, we had a little runny nose, some sneezing, a little bit of nausea for a short period of time. And besides that, though, I mean, there was no cough, there was no fever. So, although it's still highly contagious, they tell me, so I did lie low for a while. But back to my other odds and ends I wanted to talk about. I wanted to put a spotlight on another content creator for the month of September. And this content creator is Jared from Revert to Means channel on YouTube. Revert 2 as in the number 2 means. He's got a great channel. He's got an Instagram page by the same name and a Gettr page by the same name. But I want to talk about his YouTube channel. Now, his YouTube channel, the thing I like about it is Jared's a straight shooter. He's an honest guy. He, as he describes himself, self-described as just a guy with a phone making observations. But I mean, it's if you like real estate, if you like business, if you like economics. I mean, he talks about lots of stuff. He talks about stuff that you probably wouldn't even expect to hear on, such a channel. I mean, he talks about prepping. He talks about nutrition. He talks about life. Just common sense type stuff. And that's why one of the reasons I like Jared and I like his channel, and I think you would too. So do me a favor, do yourself a favor, and check out Jared at Revert to Means on Instagram, Gettr, and especially on YouTube. Now, for the topic of the day, let's do an update on the Russian-Ukraine conflict. And right now I want to start things off with casualty figures, which is weird because, again, in every conflict, it's hard to get accurate casualty figures on an ongoing war, conflict, etc., particularly from the parties in the war. But let me start with, I've been using Wikipedia, and on Wikipedia I've been using the US and the UK government's numbers because I think they have less skin in the game than some of the others that are posting on there. But that said, obviously they also have skin in the game. Now, let's compare this to last time I did a video, which is a couple months ago on this topic. The US was reporting that the Russians had 16,000 casualties, and the UK was reporting the Russians had 20,000 casualties. This time around, the US is reporting 70 to 80,000 KIA Russians. So we went from 16,000 to 70 to 80. Kind of a big leap. If that is true, if that is accurate, not good for Russia. But I digress. Let's go over to the UK numbers. Last time, a couple months ago, I reported that, according to Wikipedia and the UK, 20,000 Russian casualties estimated. This time around, there is no UK casualty figures. There is only a conglomeration, amalgamation of US, UK, and Estonian. I guess that's an estimate of all three combined. And their estimate of the US, UK, and Estonian estimate is 15,000 KIA, which is weird because a couple months ago, the UK was reporting 20,000 KIA, which is what I mean when I say it's hard to get accurate numbers during an active conflict, an active shooting war. Let's go over to the Ukrainian casualties. A few months ago, U.S. was reporting 55,000 to 11,000 KIA. The UK was reporting 20,000 Ukrainian casualties in their armed services. Right now, the U.S. and the UK are reporting nothing because they are not posting anything at all for casualty figures. The only casualty figures you can now find on Wikipedia for the Ukraine-Russia war are posted, or well, according to the Wikipedia anyway, are from the Ukrainian government themselves. and their straight shooting numbers are 9,000 KIA, which is weird because the U.S. was going all the way up to 11,000 and the UK was reporting 20,000, and now, according to the Ukrainian government, 9,000. But I digress. Let's get over to a couple of articles. First one is by CNBC. Putin threatens to let Europe freeze over winter, raising risk of energy rationing. September 8th, 2022, by Holly Elliott. And it starts like this. Europe was already facing a difficult and unpredictable winter when it came to its energy supplies, and it looks to phase out all Russian imports. But Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday again threatened to completely stop all supplies, a move which he hinted would leave Europe to freeze. Yeah, I mean, like, all these countries are, working against him. It only makes sense, if you're Vladimir Putin, to not provide energy to the countries that are actively trying to destroy your armed services. But back to the article. Russia has already halted gas supplies to the region, citing technical issues on Nord Stream 1 pipeline, leaving the region vulnerable as it tries to replenish energy storage ahead of colder months. Let's see here. Responding to EU proposals to implement price caps on Russian energy imports, Putin told business leaders in Vladivostok that Russia could yet decide to rip up existing contracts. Putin's threat to halt all supplies raises the risk of energy rationing in Europe this winter. Yeah, no kidding. The EU has already called upon its members to voluntarily reduce their gas consumption by 15% in the fall and winter, but that might not be enough to allay the need for restrictions on gas use. More on that later. Let's see here. Next article from The Guardian. Nothing is decided. EU energy ministers clash over price cap on Russian gas, by Jennifer Rankin, September 9th on Friday. EU energy ministers have clashed over a plan to put a price cap on Russian gas, casting doubt on whether the measure will go ahead. Speaking after emergency talks in Brussels, in response to surging gas and electricity prices, the EU's Energy Commissioner, Kadri Simpson, said nothing is decided on proposals to curb Russia's income. Vladimir Putin has dismissed the idea as stupid and threatened to make Europe freeze this winter if a cap is agreed. Russia has already slashed supplies to Europe and says it will not resume flows at previous volumes until the EU lifts sanctions. And then we're talking about some of the other countries. There was more consensus over a proposal to cap the high price of EU-produced electricity from renewable sources. The European Commission favors a mandatory 5% cut in electricity use during peak hours, according to the leaked paper seen by The Guardian. And from what I've heard, some of their plan also includes if a limit to the amount of heat you can set your thermostat at. And if you exceed that, you can spend up to 5 years in prison. So that's not great. But I digress. Let's move on to another article here and go to one more. This is from NPR. Russian forces withdraw from the Kharkiv region as Ukraine pushes a counteroffensive, from September 10th. And it's by Elisa Nadswork and Ashley Westerman. Slovansk, Ukraine. Ukrainian forces have broken through Russia's front lines in the east, retaking strategic towns and territory in a surprise counteroffensive that began just days ago. Ukrainian officials claim to have recaptured some 270 square miles in the key towns of Izium, Balaklia, and Kupiansk, all of which have been controlled by Russian forces for months. The deputy mayor of Izium, Vladimir Matsokin, confirmed in a Telegraph post that armed forces of Ukraine are in the city, but say it's too early to say the city has been liberated. He says the military is working on it. Let's see here. While Russia's Ministry of Defense and Kremlin have not officially acknowledged the counteroffensive, Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashev confirmed that Moscow's forces withdrew from the city of Izium, a key regional transportation and supply hub, to liberate Donbass, as it was decided to regroup the Russian troops in the area of Balaklia and Izium to scale up efforts in the Donetsk direction. Okay, and then one last thing here on this article that was relatively important. A recent analysis by the Institute for the Study of War, a think tank based in Washington, D.C., says that successes in the Kharkiv counteroffensive are creating fissures within the Russian information space and eroding confidence in Russian command. So, one more thing I glanced at right before I started this video. Trading Economics website. Trading Economics. The ruble was at 60 per US dollar in September, remaining well above levels prior to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and cementing its rebound from the record low of 150 touched in March. So, the update is as follows. Oh, and one other thing before I give you the final update, the final idea I've got. Don't forget that candidate status for the EU for Ukraine is still was granted back in June. Now that process could take up to 5 years, but my question is, will that give Vladimir Putin and his forces extra motivation to kind of move quickly, work quickly, finish this job before they get EU status, official status? Because if you attack an EU country, it's bad news, man. You might as well attack a NATO country. But final update. Update is as follows. So the West is continuing to give weapons and money to Ukraine, as I'm sure everybody knows. U.S. is just continuing to print more money. Ukraine is fighting back, but it's got a far smaller force than Russia. I mean, they've got half the force of Russia's military. And that's if they use all of their, 900,000 reservists, which are probably not really feasible. The ruble is up, way up. The U.S. debt and deficit are also way up. Could this have been over already? Could there have been a negotiation made? I mean, there were several negotiations made and screwed up by the Biden administration early on. But even before that, I mean, Zelensky could have agreed to give up some territory and the conflict would have been over. Let the Donbass go. It's primarily populated by Russians supporting Ukrainians anyway. So could have been over a long time ago, in my opinion. It's not. We're giving them just enough money and weaponry to weaken us significantly economically and militarily, and give them just enough to keep the war going, but in my opinion, probably not win. So, and you also have to think, is Vladimir Putin, is that his objective? He seems to be winning economically. The ruble is way up. He seems to be dug in. He's not really losing ground unless you believe the narrative. Now, in my opinion, it's equally possible that he might be just drawing the Ukrainians out to the southeast, retreating to the southeast slowly, controlled retreat, and regrouping and reconsolidating. And he can reconsolidate 100%. These guys, the Ukrainians, they don't have that ability. They don't have as many men. They don't have as much weaponry, as much equipment. So he knows that he can just wait them out. He can continue to slow roll this invasion. I mean, he doesn't have to do a blitzkrieg across Europe. It might be better for him, but I think that he's in it for the long haul. He knows that if this fails, his presidency is not going to last very much longer if he fails at this, in my opinion. So I think that he is in it for the long haul, and it doesn't matter if it's the long haul is 6 months or 6 years, although I do think he wants to finish this before they join the EU. But that said, maybe I'm wrong. I would love to hear what you guys think. So post your comments below. Don't forget to like this video, and please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps the YouTube algorithm and the Rumble. If you press down on that boxing glove, pick up and put this in the search engine when people are looking for this topic. And don't forget, check out Jared at Revert to Means. And one last thing, don't forget, we are growing. We are still growing. We are Follow Me 11B here on YouTube. We are Follow Me 11B on Facebook, on Gettr, on Twitter, and the real Follow Me on Instagram and Rumble. And we will see you all on the next video.